What is going on, everyone? Welcome to 24/7 Football for another type of fan channel video where we speak to different fans from various clubs from around England, speak about their season, what's been going on at that club, and talk about the future as well. I'm delighted to say we've got Sam Martin from the FoxesFancast joining us. Sam, how are you today? You okay?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. Thank you for having me on.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. Thanks for taking the time out of your day, like I said. So just before we do, what is a FoxesFancast and why did you set it up as well?
So Foxes Fancast is a Leicester City-based podcast. Why I set it up? That's a good question. I guess I've always sort of thought, you know what, I'd like to do that sort of thing. I'd like to think that I know half decent a bit about football. I set it up about a week before the country went into lockdown. So I got started and then all of a sudden there was no football for 3 months. So I spent the time basically speaking to ex-players. That was quite good, really. I had sort of long depth interviews with them. I really enjoyed it. Football's come back now, so I've had to sort of change a bit and have it a bit more football orientated. And I've recently set up a website as well, just for written form articles and that sort of stuff. Just to sort of, I wanted to do something a bit different. You know, like there are a lot of people, especially with articles, that will do sort of, to coin a phrase, sort of clickbait articles.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
And I just want to produce something a bit different and hopefully give people sort of a bit of content that they do enjoy and sort of an insight into football that maybe, and especially Leicester, that maybe that they don't get, because a lot of, especially in the Premier League, a lot of what you see is what the clubs want you to see, and hopefully in speaking to certain people you can get a bit of a sort of behind the scenes and that sort of thing. So without going on too much, that's sort of a bit about the podcast and what I do. And then I also have a sort of FPL account personally. Again, that's sort of 4 months old, but that's sort of gaining traction itself as well. So I talk a lot of rubbish, mate, about football, but I imagine that sort of, I imagine that goes for most of us, really.
Absolutely. And FPL wise, bit of an FPL legend, whereas me, I do it at the start and then I just leave it for the rest of the season. So just before we do crack on, the Foxes Fancast has some brilliant content on there. All the descriptions will be in the link below. Make sure you go and check Sam out as well. So Sam, Leicester City, the Brendan Rodgers gravy train at the start of the season. Going into this season, before the pandemic, you know, some cracking signings, in particular Yuri Tillmans. Did you think there was a cause for optimism and were you excited going into this season?
Yeah, look, mate, we're a weird club. And the fact that we're having this conversation now shows how far we've come as a club, you know, from the years gone by. As sort of a bit of a backstory about me, I've sort of followed Leicester all my life. So it's not like I'm just going to be one of these people that, we win the league and all of a sudden I'm there. So I've been through the ups, I've been through the downs. With Brendan coming in, it was exciting. You know, he's a top level manager. And we started to make signings. Like you say, Tielemans was really good for us when he was on loan from Monaco. And I think going into the season, there's always sort of optimism. You know, you probably expect Man City and Liverpool to be sort of out of reach, in all honesty. And then it's a case of sort of maybe we can make a push on Europe, 6th, 7th, 5th. And then just sort of see where we go would probably have been how I was looking sort of, coming into the season.
Obviously, there was a lot of fears around not replacing Harry Maguire, who went to Manchester United. I mean, how good has Soyuncu been to fill that void? I mean, we always call him Lord Farquhar off Shrek. He just looks the spit of him. But how impressed were you from him at the start of the season?
Yeah, he's a weird one because in playing last year, you could see he had talent, but he was rash, and it was kind of a case of, yeah, we could be in trouble. And he's been different class. But to be honest, part of the reason he has been able to be so good is because of Johnny Evans. And he's probably one of the most underrated players in the Premier League. And people sort of forget about him because, you know, he was at United and he didn't really play, and all of a sudden then he was at West Brom, you know, but he has been absolutely magic for us. He's probably been our best player this season, to be honest.
Started the season on fire, 9-0 against Southampton. You know, Leicester were absolutely flying. Jamie Vardy still at the top of the top scorer race. I mean, tell me a little bit about Jamie Vardy. How is he actually regarded by the Leicester faithful?
Mate, Jamie Vardy will forever be a Leicester legend. You know, we witnessed things that Leicester fans would never even imagine in their wildest dreams that they would be able to witness. And Vardy was a key for Leicester in that season. You touched on sort of us running away at the start of the season, you know, and we were really, really good, and Vardy as well, you know. And he is, like you say, we're sat here and he is top scorer of the Premier League. So looking from the outside in, the fact that you're even asking that question, you think, hang on, what's going on here? But we have been that bad, and he has been that not. Well, he's just been like invisible for the last, and whether that's his fault or whether that's a midfield's fault, you know, that's probably something that even Leicester fans are trying to work out. I think the fact how well regarded he is by Leicester fans has bought him more and more time, you know, with the exception of the Villa game where he came off the bench and scored 2. He's not scored in something like 10, 11 games, you know. And again, it seems daft because he is top goal scorer in the league, but with other players, you might start looking at different things. I think we're now at the point where Leicester fans are like, look, something needs to change, but it will probably be, the talk seems to be more that we go 2 up front with Iheanacho as opposed to Vardy drops out the side completely. But then again, like I said, like because he is invisible, it's not like he's playing badly and he's missing chances. He's just not getting them. You know, like I don't know if you saw any of our game last night against Everton, and obviously it was Thursday. Now we're recording, you know, but we put 35 crosses in yesterday, of which 3 were successful. And that's with Vardy in the middle, you know, and that's never working. You know, that's not Vardy's fault. So it's a tough one. But I think we play Palace on Saturday, and I think if we don't win, that game, then there'll be serious questions asked, and it could get quite messy, really.
Yeah, I know you just spoke about obviously going into this after COVID, the break in the season. I mean, do you think I know it's all if buts and maybes, but if COVID didn't happen, do you think the momentum carries you through and you get top 4 without any shadow of a doubt? I know it's so hard to say that, but do you think it was a big momentum killer for Leicester?
I don't, and the reason I say that is because we've not been very good since about December. It's easy to pin the blame on that, and it is easy to say, you know, look, that kills all the momentum, but we really haven't been very good for a while before that. Obviously, it doesn't help. We lost Ricardo tearing his ACL at right back, and he's probably our best player within the side.
Probably argue best right back in the league, maybe as well. I know you got Trent. I don't know, but
people will get upset because Trent has all the assists and stuff like that. But if I was building a side, I would want Ricardo over Trent. As good as Trent is, I think it's a lot easier in a Liverpool side than a Leicester side, you know. And that's with no disrespect to our side, but Trent gets a bit more of a freedom to sort of sit there and just cross balls in. He effectively plays as like a right midfielder, really, doesn't he? But I think Ricardo could play for anyone in the world, you know, and it wouldn't surprise me. That's probably the one blessing with him getting injured, is that there is every chance that we would have lost him this summer.
Yeah. So in terms of the top 4, then you say you've not been too great since December. Since you've come back, horrific. Are you worried? Are you worried about losing top 4? Do you think it could happen?
Oh, mate, absolutely petrified. I think a lot of Leicester fans have already sort of conceded the fact that we're not going to.
And get it in early just so it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's sort of foolish pessimism, but the problem is the form is relegation form. you know, and look, if you play well and don't win, that's one thing. But we were poor against Watford, who were poor, you know, and they got hammered by Southampton the other day. You know, we were poor against Brighton, and they're not much better, you know, and we were poor against Chelsea in the cup. We were poor first half last night. You know, it's hard, and you look at sides like United who are just battering everyone, and you think, how do we keep them away? We were lucky last night, really, that West Ham beat Chelsea. That was a good result for us.
So as well, I know you're worried about not getting top four now. There seems to have been quite a lot of criticism aimed towards Ben Chilwell over the last few weeks. A lot of Leicester fans really don't seem to like him. And from the outside looking in, obviously, because we're not in that Leicester bubble, we just see Ben Chilwell as this great prospect, a fantastic left back. But what is the actual story of Ben Chilwell within the Leicester ranks and amongst the supporters?
Being genuinely honest, mate, I don't really know, because it's weird because people might be listening to this and I might receive a load of pelters off people listening.
Yeah,
because
please
they might
don't
think,
have a go at Sam.
No, but it's all right because it is a valid conversation. But you're right, Leicester fans, and again, I have to be careful in what I say because I've got my own podcast and I don't want to upset anyone at the club. But Leicester fans really don't really like Ben Chilwell, and I would say to an unfair level. He is made to be a scapegoat. You know, he's not really played that badly this year yet. Every time we lose, it gets blamed on him. I think even last night, he was probably one of our best players, and people absolutely hammered him because in the 93rd minute, he rolled a ball back instead of going forward. And, you know, it's little things like that. Where does it come from? I think he's an easy character to dislike. There's a story that came from Steve Morrison, the old.
I've seen this story. I'm actually listening now because what is this story? Because I've never managed to find it out.
See, it's never been confirmed, but we played Millwall in a cup, FA Cup fourth round. I don't know whatever round it was, but we played Millwall away. And after the game, Steve Morrison said that Ben Chilwell refused to take throw-ins. Because he was getting that much abuse from the Millwall fans. Whether that's true or not, I do not know. Ben Chilwell has always refused that, and apparently it's something that his hands were hurting. But Leicester fans didn't like that. And then before, in the Villa game, in the Cup, there was sort of in the tunnel before the game, him and Maddison were sort of like hugging Grealish. That didn't really sit very well with people because we then went on to get beat. In the Chelsea FA Cup game, literally on final whistle, there was sort of Chilwell sort of laughing and joking with Barkley, and we'd just been knocked out of an FA Cup quarter-final. You know, if out of context, I don't know. I just personally don't really think he's top level. Now, that's nothing against him because he is a good left-back, and he is currently the England left-back. You know, but I think a lot of Leicester fans, there's a case of if Chelsea want to pay 60 million, there are not many Leicester fans that you could ask that would say, no, I wouldn't sell him for that price. And that's probably wrong because he's a young English lad. But I don't know, Leicester fans are quite bad for that. You know, like Harvey Barnes isn't massively rated within Leicester. Mm-hmm. You know, and to the outside, people think he's like kind of been one of the next England wingers. You know, and we don't really rate him. So I don't know. I don't know why Chilwell, because I agree with you. Chilwell does get a hard time. He does get a hard time, but then I say I agree with you, but then I probably give him a hard time as well. So I'm being a hypocrite in sort of saying that Leicester fans are in the wrong for doing it. I don't know. There's just something about him. There's just something about him that rubs people up the wrong way.
So going into past this season, and if we can look past this COVID season that has been, it was probably a different answer to the one that you'll probably give me because we don't know where finances are at in terms of what's happened at the moment. But what do you think the future holds for Leicester in terms of the immediate next 3 seasons? What would you like to see happen? Who would you like to see come in? And what do you think could happen at the King Power?
I think it's really positive, mate, to be fair. If you'd have asked me this question 3 weeks ago, I'd have given you a much more positive answer. Because at that point, it would have been a case of, right, we'll wrap up Champions League. That will be dead easy. We're building a massive training ground complex, which will be probably the best in England. And that will be different class. And it would be a case of the plans for us are really to establish ourselves within that sort of top six, and to be a serious team. We've got a good young side, Chilwell included, as much as and Barnes, as much as it sort of just sat there and slated both of them to an extent. We've got a really good young side. The facilities are going to be there. The owners sort of backers, they always have done. So with the manager as well, there's no reason why we can't compete. Obviously, it's difficult to compete with the likes of Man City, Liverpool, the top clubs. But there's sort of no reason why we can't compete with Chelsea, Spurs, Arsenal, United. In terms of transfers, again, and this is a tough one, mate, because at some point you say, right, when do we need to replace Vardy? And that's it's a tough conversation because we're talking about the Premier League's top scorer.
Is that the biggest elephant in the room, do you think?
No, the biggest elephant is in the room is that we need two wingers.
Yeah.
We desperately need two wingers because we don't really have one that's at the level we need, and we really struggle as a result. But we need to then replace Vardy. How we do that and with who we do that is weird, because I don't see Vardy being the sort of player that would be willing to be a bit part player, And look, if all of a sudden he picks up form, he gets 23 goals for the season and he's a season top scorer, how do you say, right, that's him done? Because you can't, but in 2 years' time, will he be sort of in the position to play 38 games for Leicester leading the line? Probably not. So at what point do you have to say, look, we need to buy a proper sort of figurehead striker? Because as much as Iheanacho comes on and he tries, he's never going to be that sort of leading striker in a top six Premier League side, which is where we want to be.
Just finally then, just before we end it there, you spoke about the owners. I mean, there's so many teams in the league. You look at Manchester United, the blaring example of a team that's owners are so disjointed from the fans. What's the feeling around the ownership at Leicester? Because from the outside looking in, it looks like a match made in heaven. They're so good. Yeah,
mate, it's as good as it gets. Obviously we had the passing of Kunvishai, and when that happened, obviously the biggest feeling you have is sort of grief, and the whole city and especially the football club and its fans grieved him as though it was. It's hard to really get across how much it did impact us. This is people that you'd maybe met once or twice. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people had never met him. And people grieved him as though it was a sort of a loved one. And that's because they have shown us things that Leicester fans would never in their wildest dreams. If I think back to sort of going to Yeovil away on a Tuesday night in League One, or, like Walsall away and it's snowing, and you're thinking, if you'd have told a 15-year-old me when I was doing those things that I'd watch Leicester like lift the Premier League trophy, like, you think, yeah, like maybe on FIFA or something. But, so they will always be respected. But so much more than that is that we won the league, but we've also sort of, they pump money into the hospitals, the local, and, and the big charitable, we've got this training ground that's being built. There's stadium plans for sort of expansion, so I would argue that we probably have the best owners in sort of English football, and that's only without knowing that there probably are people out in the world that, that are better, but definitely in English football, I don't think there's anyone that compares.
I think that's the perfect way to end this little show here. So, Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you coming on today. Like I said, check out the Foxes Fancast and Sam. All their links will be in the description below. Time will tell whether Leicester will stay in those Champions League places, but I think just for Sam, we hope that they do. So thank you to everyone who's watched this video. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Check out our website, 247football.com. Like the video as well. Thank you all for watching again, and we shall see you next time.